Howard Hughes was once America's golden child, an ingenious inventor, daring aviator, Hollywood mogul, and legendary billionaire. Yet his story took a jarring turn few could predict. Instead of enjoying a life of endless glamour, he descended into a strange world of reclusion, paranoia, and scandal that baffled everyone around him. How did the man who seemingly had it all end up barricading himself in dark hotel rooms for months, obsessing over microscopic germs, and struggling with a torrent of hidden afflictions? Surprising origins and a sudden inheritance. The exact details of Howard Hughes's birth remain vague. One document says he was born on Christmas Eve, 1905 in Texas, while another cites September of that same year without listing a place at all. Whether this discrepancy was due to family tradition or pure oversight, it foreshadowed the mysteries that would surround Hughes for life. Even as a child, he showed unmistakable brilliance. At just 11, he built Houston's very first wireless radio transmitter and proudly became its first licensed ham radio operator. 1 year later, he was in local headlines again for creating a motorized bicycle from scratch. By 14, he was already taking flying lessons. Hugely significant for a boy living in an era when airplanes still felt like science fiction to most. Then tragedy struck. Hughes's mother lost her life due to complications from pregnancy in 1922, and his father succumbed to heart failure only 2 years later. At 17, Hughes had suddenly become an orphan. His father's will was never updated, and the entire family fortune fell directly into his hands. All of a sudden, this brilliant teen had unlimited resources and no real parental guidance. Instead of heading back to school, the newly minted heir set his sights on the West Coast. He also married a local Houston beauty, Ella Rice, and whisked her off to Los Angeles, effectively kicking off his dream of fame, fortune, and filmmaking. A wild ride in Hollywood awaited him, but the glamorous film industry would soon discover that this young millionaire was no ordinary producer. Hollywood gambles and controversies. Once in Los Angeles, Hughes wasted no time. He met actor Ralph Graves, who pitched a script called Swell Hogan, and the naive Hughes financed it for a hefty sum. That decision ended in disaster. Even after doubling the budget, the film was so atrocious that Hughes' own uncle allegedly advised him to burn it. Embarrassed but undeterred, Hughes refused to let failure define him. After all, he had enough money to try again. And again. Money wasn't his only pursuit. Freed from any real parental restraint and newly divorced from Ella Rice, Hughes dove into the Hollywood dating scene. Rumors tied him to the most glamorous female leads of the time: Ginger Rogers, Katharine Hepburn, Olivia de Havilland, and Bette Davis. Whispers even circulated that he pursued affairs with male stars like Tyrone Power and Cary Grant, though those claims remain unverified. Hollywood, however, wasn't just about romance for Hughes. He wanted control, so he set his sights on RKO Pictures, at one point a leading movie studio. Upon buying a controlling stake, he promptly fired hundreds of employees, drastically cut the number of annual productions, and allegedly launched a paranoid commie hunt. He had each employee investigated to ensure they aligned with his staunch, anti-communist beliefs. Minority shareholders were livid and sued him, but Hughes simply bought out their shares and became RKO's sole owner. He later sold the studio for a tidy profit, demonstrating a knack for making money even when his methods seemed downright bizarre. Yet Hughes's flair for drama transcended Hollywood boardrooms and movie sets, following him right onto the streets and into the skies. Aviation triumphs and legal close calls. Long before commercial flights were considered reliable, Hughes was determined to prove otherwise. He bet that long-distance air travel could be done quickly and safely. Inspired by Wiley Post's 1933 record of flying around the world in 186 hours, Hughes assembled a team and cut that time in half, landing in New York in just 91 hours. This achievement catapulted him from Hollywood producer to a national aviation hero. But not every chapter in his life soared so smoothly. In 1936, Hughes was driving through Los Angeles when he struck and killed a pedestrian named Gabriel Meyer. Witnesses initially claimed Hughes had been drinking and that Meyer had done nothing wrong. To many, it seemed like an open and shut case of negligent homicide. Strangely, key witnesses reversed their accounts almost overnight, and Hughes walked away without conviction. Rumors spread of bribes and hush money, but he never faced justice in the tragic loss of Meyer's life. If that ordeal rattled him, Hughes didn't let it show. Instead, he sank deeper into his aviation projects and world record pursuits. The more he excelled in the skies, the more he seemed determined to distance himself from anything, and anyone, that threatened his sense of control on the ground. Even as he flew faster and higher than the competition, nobody foresaw the peculiar extremes he would reach in the name of privacy and comfort. Escalating eccentricities, hotels, hermitage, and hoarding. As the 1950s and 1960s unfolded, Hughes's behavior became increasingly strange. He shut himself away for months in private screening rooms, obsessively rewatching the same movies on loop. One particular favorite, Ice Station Zebra, was broadcast hundreds of times by a TV station he owned, replayed at any hour he demanded, so he would never miss a scene. His reclusion extended to lavish hotels, where he and his aides would buy out entire floors, ensuring Hughes's privacy. The most famous example may be the Desert Inn in Las Vegas, where he stayed so long that management tried to evict him. Rather than relocating, he simply bought the hotel. Another nearby casino sign, the Silver Slipper, disturbed him with its bright lights at night, so he purchased that property too and had the sign repositioned. Inside his suites, Hughes was rumored to keep jars filled with urine, rarely bathe and wear minimal clothing, sometimes just draping himself with a napkin. Although rumors vary in detail, countless accounts describe him as drifting away from basic hygiene, steadily allowing his hair, nails, and physical condition to deteriorate. Whether it was a germ phobia, a mental health crisis, or both, these were clear signs that the man once admired as a brilliant prodigy was becoming deeply troubled. But Hughes's eccentricities weren't limited to personal habits. Soon he found himself entangled in one of the biggest political scandals in U.S. history, the Watergate link and political turmoil. In the early 1970s, American politics were rocked by the Watergate scandal, leading to President Richard Nixon's resignation. While many remember the break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, fewer realize that it was partly driven by Nixon's fears about alleged shady dealings with Howard Hughes. According to rumors, Nixon had accepted a $200,000 contribution from Hughes, money that could point to unethical or illegal maneuvers. Worried that Democrats might expose these connections, Nixon's operatives broke into the Watergate complex to retrieve documents they believed detailed the scandal. The break-in failed spectacularly, and the ensuing investigation led to Nixon's downfall. Hughes himself walked away relatively unscathed, shielded by teams of lawyers and his own habit of staying far removed from public life. Whether the hush money or secret deals were ever fully documented remains a point of debate, but it added another dark chapter to Hughes's already tangled life story. The political storm only pushed him further into seclusion. By the time his divorce and final days loomed, few recognized the once dashing billionaire at all. Marriage, divorce, and alarming decline. Though rumored to have had numerous relationships, Hughes formally proposed to Hollywood actor Jean Peters in the 1940s. At first, Peters refused, focusing on her career and leery of Hughes's controlling ways. Some said he even had security men shadow her every move, which hardly spelled romance. Years later, they gave it another try, marrying in 1957. But this too was far from a fairy tale union. They lived apart, rarely saw each other, and communicated mostly by telephone. By 1970, it was clear the marriage was a farce. Peters filed for divorce in what many predicted would become a legal free-for-all over Hughes's fortune. Shockingly, she asked for very little, just a modest yearly sum. She never publicly shared negative stories about him, either, showing a level of discretion few had expected. Meanwhile, Hughes drifted deeper into his own mental and physical decline, adopting bizarre dietary habits like demanding only small peas for dinner, or eggs prepared exactly as his family's old cook used to make them. With his marriage in shambles and his health deteriorating, Hughes's final journey would be as mysterious as everything else in his life. The strange final flight in the Mormon will. In April 1976, a frail Hughes boarded a private jet in Acapulco bound for Houston, Texas. Partway through the flight, he stopped breathing, and by the time the plane touched down, medical staff could not even recognize him. Once they confirmed his identity through fingerprints, They conducted an autopsy and discovered frightening details. The man weighed barely over 90 pounds, had needle fragments embedded in his arms, and suffered from bed sores and severe malnutrition. The official cause listed was kidney failure, though some suspected an injection or medication had accelerated his end. The aftermath was a spectacle, complete with a mysterious handwritten document known as the Mormon will. It surfaced unexpectedly at a church office in Utah, allegedly delivered by a man claiming to have rescued Hughes on a roadside years earlier. This will left substantial amounts of money to various organizations and individuals, including the very stranger who produced it. A Nevada jury eventually declared it a forgery, and so Hughes's estate defaulted to his cousins, split into many parts. Once again, scandal and confusion followed Hughes, even in death. Yet there was still one more explosive revelation that might explain his erratic mind and hidden demons. Neurosyphilis rumors and tragic legacy. One of the most unsettling theories claims that Hughes's mental decline was triggered by neurosyphilis. As a young man in the whirlwind of Hollywood nightlife, he supposedly contracted syphilis before the widespread use of antibiotics. When syphilis infiltrates the nervous system, it can trigger severe psychiatric symptoms, ranging from paranoia and hallucinations to dementia and delirium. Early treatments involve mercury, which itself can cause long-term harm. Layering on his alleged obsessive-compulsive disorder, it's little wonder Hughes might have spiraled into bizarre rituals, crippling phobias, and self-imposed isolation. Whether or not this specific diagnosis is accurate, what we know for certain is that Howard Hughes's extraordinary mind and bottomless resources were not enough to shield him from his own fragility. He was a pioneer whose planes set records, a filmmaker who saw possibilities others missed, and a tycoon who reshaped entire industries. Yet at the same time, he was a troubled soul battling inner chaos that no amount of money or power could fully suppress. Howard Hughes's life was a study in extremes. At one moment, he was the dashing aviator wowing the world with record-breaking flights, and at the next, he was an isolated figure in a luxury hotel, hidden from prying eyes by blackout curtains and his own ever-growing fears. Some see him as a cautionary tale about limitless wealth without emotional grounding. Others champion him as a misunderstood genius undone by flawed medicine, outdated treatments, and the complications of severe mental illness. His story continues to fascinate because it defies neat categories: hero or villain, entrepreneur or eccentric, visionary or lunatic. In truth, Hughes was all of these things and more. While the world might remember him for his triumphs in aviation or his high-profile romances, the real story is far more complex and deeply human. He was brilliant enough to innovate at the highest level, yet tortured enough to let that brilliance devour him from the inside. So what do you think really drove Howard Hughes to the brink? Was it the limitless potential that brought with it limitless pressure? Or was it an undiagnosed medical condition slowly unraveling his mind? Perhaps it was both, woven together in a final, tragic masterpiece that no audience could fully comprehend. One thing is certain: the legend of Howard Hughes will endure, a puzzle forever tempting us to pry deeper into the shadows and wonder just how much of his downfall was truly beyond his control.